Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, welcome back everybody to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew Meehan alongside my partner and co-host, the Professor, Luigi Rosa Bianca. What's going on today, Lou?
Matt, how are you, pal? Matt, a creative mind often results in a person with multifaceted, diverse interests, right? How many of us can say we have a boring 9-to-5 job? Guys and girls in this field, we kind of tend to multitask. And today we have the queen of multitasking. We have Stacy Raske, who is the self-proclaimed biker chick, badass biker chick, but to her credit, she is a Iraqi war veteran to whom we will give an unending applause. A best-selling author, organizer, and leader to numerous leadership councils, and most interestingly, an authenticity alchemist. Stacy, welcome to the Liquid Lunch Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here and join you. I know we've been on the books for a while, so I'm glad to finally connect and get to have this awesome chat with you. So thank you.
We've been looking forward to it as well. But let's start from the end. What is an authenticity alchemist?
Well, an alchemist is really, the simplest term is someone who kind of brings things together. I just find that sort of the simplest explanation. And if we're really in a place of activating the highest form of influential leadership, or what I call influential leadership, it really comes from this place of authenticity. So we're bringing together and activating our highest level of authenticity, which means for us who are leaders, who are impactors, we're actually emotionally available for what we desire.
So Stacy, if you're starting with that premise, then I have to go with the assumption that most people tend to not be authentic. Why is that?
That is true. Most of us are not taught healthy boundaries, and it's this kind of magical concept. But what happens is when we don't have these healthy ways of managing relationships, both the relationship with ourselves and the relationship with others, we experience life inevitably. We have wounds that happen. A lot of us come from trauma and instability and stuff that happens. And what we end up needing to create internal safety. So instead we develop walls. I think a lot of people just sort of get what that is. We're like, oh, yep, I got some walls, where we just don't allow people access to certain parts of our emotional being. And the biggest place we actually have walls is in the relationship with ourselves. And as we're able to dismantle those walls, which most of us do over time in our leadership journey and our personal development journey, that allows us to implement healthy boundaries, which is the replacement. We create that internal safety in a healthy way, and that allows us to be emotionally available for the team, for leading our teams, for leading our businesses, for being the impactors, purpose-driven people we're called to be, and at the same time, be open to receive all of those things that we desire, whether it is relationships and success or money or whatever those things are.
Now, Stacy, welcome to the Liquid Lunch couch. We love so many things about you, Matt and I, but there's something we love about you is something that you are not. And you are not that screaming woman who says, I am woman, hear me roar. Why not? Why are you so comfortable in your skin that you don't have to wave the feminist flag?
Oh, I love this. This is fantastic. This is such a great conversation. I actually was talking with someone who's a lifetime leader in the Navy, and she's kind of in that same space. She's like, I have this ability to, on my podcast, have both men and women. We're talking leadership. This isn't necessarily focusing on gender. What this is, regardless of whether it's women or men, because I see this across all leaders, is the difference between empowered masculine and disempowered masculine. And most people really struggle with their masculine energy. And a lot of women, especially, we lack a lot of strong, balanced female role models. And so we've learned one of two things. We've either learned sort of the traditional hyper masculine way of leadership, which many of us have grown up with, which is just based on control. And for anybody who has control issues, that is our disempowered masculine energy. Or we focus on the opposite, which is our feminine energy, which is pure emotion. And we need a balance of both to truly be impactful, influential leaders. And again, masculine, feminine energy, it's like yin and yang, right? This is, everyone has it. This has nothing to do with physical gender. But there's a lot of social stereotypes and paradigms, a lot of generational paradigms and stories as well that we've learned in our culture around the roles of men and women. Unfortunately, a lot of it kind of functions from this disempowered masculine and feminine energy. And so that is where there's that one extreme where it's like we're in this feminine energy, and even that can be this disempowered feminine, where it is this screaming sort of victim mentality. Things are happening to me, a little bit of that manipulation side of things. And again, men and women both can utilize that disempowered feminine energy in that way.
Stace, were you raised really well, or is this something that you really focus on a daily basis to become this disempowered feminine superstar?
It is me leaning into my healing journey. I mean, my rock bottom moment was only at the end of 2014. And I grew up with a lot of instability. I lacked a lot of healthy, empowered role models. So my programming was unhealthy boundaries, a lot of both disempowered masculine energy. So I have tons of control issues, which even now I am always working on my control issues, focusing on my boundaries. It's a process, it's a journey, but also shifting out of that victim energy, that disempowered feminine, into empowered feminine, which is that vulnerability, that authenticity, the creativity, and the strength. And then the empowered masculine, instead of the control issues, we have boundaries, confidence, integrity, safety, and stability, right? Like there are these concepts that we know, but they're literally, when combined and balanced, it is a way of being that if you bring that into your leadership, totally is a game changer.
So, Stacy, I was fortunate enough to spend some time at one of your workshops, and it was actually amazing. It blew my mind. The energy that was in there, the emotions that filled the room was something I wasn't expecting, which was awesome as well. But, you said you started your journey in 2014. Bring us back a little bit further than that. Give us the origin story. Where you are,
absolutely.
How you got into the military, and how you got to where you are right now.
Absolutely. So for me, I mean, I came from a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of instability, physical and non-physical violence and abuse. Both my entire family, both sides of my family, really the immediate family, a lot of emotional unavailability, and it was my parents just working with the toolkits that they had. I mean, my parents were divorced at 2, so going between different houses. And I learned very early in life that I didn't have people to communicate with me about emotion. Everything was based on achievement. Everything was very external. So very quickly, just with all of those traumas, walls go up, and I became focused on performance and achievement, AKA control issues, controlling as many things as possible externally to get the external validation that I craved because I didn't know what love was. It was, you get the attention and the accolades and the quote unquote love when you perform. And so I started wearing the mask of who I should be rather than building a real, genuine relationship with myself. So really, if you fast forward over decades and decades, spending a lifetime of rejecting your truth, rejecting your power, packing all of these wounds and stories and awesome things about yourself behind those walls to just keep feeding the mask, eventually it's going to catch up with you. So, I was on my own at 16. I had to couch surf to finish high school. My walls were there for a reason, not just the childhood trauma, but then abandonment, rejection. When you get left at 16, like, well, you're on your own, like, oh, okay, thanks. There were genuine reasons for this. But I never had a lot of responsibility as a kid, not a lot of consequences, not a lot of education or modeling of what it meant to have a healthy relationship with myself, let alone others in terms of boundaries and responsibility in general, because really that's what boundaries are. Focus on what is your responsibility, you, and let go of all the other things. Well, I struggled with that. So inevitably at the age of 22, after kind of taking some time off of college and moving around a few times, I was like, it's time for a big change. Well, I needed to learn structure. I needed to learn responsibility. I needed to learn boundaries. And really, in the context of this masculine feminine energy, I needed to learn healthy, empowered masculine energy in my life for self-management and self-mastery. And so I joined the Army because, why not, right? When we really need that structure in our lives, I think we understand that's something that you get. When you lacked parenting, there tends to be a certain demographic that tends to join the military because that becomes the new parent. And you learn some really amazing things about yourself. You learn how your mind truly does run the show. Your body will do anything that your mind tells it to. You're capable of so much more. And so there was sort of those first stepping stones to empowerment. But what's interesting is when you experience things like military trauma. I cleaned up anthrax at the Pentagon right after 9/11. And we were in the crash site and all of the cleanup and stuff happening there. And then being on the front lines when we invade Iraq in 2003, we experienced these military trauma. And what was an interesting part of my slow decline over the next 10 years after getting out of the military was this increase in those unhealthy coping skills combined with this massive lack of community built up over time to this rock bottom moment. And so if I'm constantly rejecting myself, well, the way that I coped with wearing this mask of who I should be was avoidance and numbing out. And I numbed out with everything under the sun. It was food, medication, drugs, alcohol, social media, television, even at my worst, self-harm. Just anything to change how I was feeling in the moment because I hated myself. I had this terrible relationship with me. And eventually, over that 10 years, that was very apparent on the surface. I'd gained well over 100 pounds. I'd actually lost my corporate career as a pharmaceutical chemist. My marriage was in shambles. Everything was falling apart. All of these external symptoms were just showing me what was really happening inside. And I had this rock bottom moment where I just was like, oh, wow, had this clarity of really who I was being. And the beauty and the gift in that moment of taking radical personal responsibility was that I woke up the next day and I threw in the towel and said I was done trying to control anything other than myself. And it's been a rebuild journey since. And it's why I focused so much on learning and becoming an expert in boundaries and control issues and really how this is such a fundamental shift in our ability to be powerful, impactful, emotionally available, authentic leaders.
I know there's a lot of people listening right now that have been through very similar journeys to yours, right? But my question to you, as being a leader in this boundaryless world, so to speak, right? What's the first step? What do people do if they have nobody else like you? Where should they be looking?
So the most magical and amazing thing about boundaries, and really we can just say boundaries and control in this place of personal responsibility, is every moment of every day you have the power to take control of everything that you want to change in your life, because you have control over the root of all of it, which is you. If you want to change anything in your life, you shift your focus from external, which is all the stuff we're trying to control that is actually not within our control, and focus instead on you. And it's interesting because for me, the catalyst was a really simple routine. I was completely out of control and my whole world was exploding as my internal world was imploding. And it was because it was just pure chaos. So the first step was very simple. I was in this PTSD, depression, anxiety cycle. And so I started with just get up every morning, make my bed, and brush my teeth. Literally, that was it. I wrote it down. I had a little checklist every day. Did I do that? Because I was laying in bed. I mean, there was health issues. I mean, there was a lot happening, but like, I wouldn't even get out of bed. My hygiene was shit. Like, it was just terrible. And so just getting up, requiring myself to make the bed meant I got out of bed. And then brushing my teeth was like this one moment of self-care. So I created a slight external shift of creating order in my space, getting out of bed, and then brushing my teeth. And literally that routine was the catalyst to creating so much impact and success over the last 6 years. One thing, just pick one thing that you can do to help take control of you in the simplest way, and it changes everything.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in structure and little wins. Little wins add up to championships and home runs, and a lot of our audience can understand that. Thank you for sharing it.
You're welcome.
Stacy, I'm curious, how was it being a disempowered woman in a American military that has its little problems with female members of the military in the past?
So it wasn't that I was disempowered externally. It was who I was being. And that had nothing to do with my gender. But what I did find the trap was for somebody such as myself, who's kind of that natural alpha leader personality, energy, like a lot of us amazing entrepreneurs are, that when we gravitate towards that high achiever, high performance, is I was constantly seeking that external validation through action. So I was always overdoing or proving myself to apologize for the fact that I was female. But that was my own BS stuff. That's just seeking the validation. And now I'm in a context where I am now assigning a story to this, that, okay, I'm in a male dominated environment, so I need to work harder and do more to prove I am good enough to run with the guys, right? To make up for the fact that I'm a woman, and that comes with all of these preconceived notions, which was not necessarily always the case. It's just something that a lot of us as individuals do. We project our stuff, our stories, our baggage onto situations and people.
Stacy, so help me explain the other side of the coin. I was raised in a household where mom was home. She'd help me with my homework, she'd cook, she'd clean, but she was a superstar. She worked really hard, probably harder than my dad worked, but it was just a different dynamic, right? They each had their responsibilities. Why is it in today's culture we've evolved to a point where that role is almost frowned upon? How did that happen?
It is interesting that you bring that up. I mean, I think it kind of goes to the shift away from the nuclear family. I mean, I think it is a shame that when we think about jobs, that we assign so much value to this external stuff. And I think that's the real symptom of the problem is not that we're reducing the value of a stay-at-home parent, whether it's the man, woman, whatever, but just that a stay-at-home parent is not a job or a profession. But it shows how, as a culture, we assign so much of someone's value as a person to something external. And we all do it, right? Whatever the job title is, the business we own, the income we earn, right? We're assigning this value to something external. And if someone works from home, we do it where, oh, that's great, your little side hustle, your little home-based business, because you don't leave, you don't have value and are not, impacting the world, making millions of dollars like some of us are. And it's kind of the same thing. Like somehow a parent, being a parent or being that domestic engineer somehow has less value because you're not given a title or a monetary assignment of value that's external. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. But you're right. We it's an American quality. We attribute value to the amount of revenue that we generate and not how much we nurture the next generation or being a teacher. Or just look at the pay scales. Frankly, to me, a grammar school teacher should be making a lot more money than some middle level exec who's pushing paper.
Exactly. Or some of these college students coming right out of college just because they happen to be in this high demand field are making close to six figures, doing nothing, having no life experience, versus, like you said, someone who's actually educating the next generation.
Now back to the couch, the biker chick, the badass biker chick. That there is a theory that in the mid 1800s, the immersion of the feminist movement was simultaneous with the emergence of the bicycle, and that the woman was empowered and she could now go to the market and she could not have to rely upon her husband to take her with the horse and carriage to church. So tell us, any equation there with being the badass biker chick?
Well, sort of that motorcycle lifestyle is really founded on this concept of freedom, and the history.
Guilty.
And the history around motorcycle culture is very heavy in the ties with military and especially veterans, because again, having that community and that camaraderie. I think back to every time that I was in a place where I was really suicidal, I was massively lacking community. But it is anytime that we have an opportunity to empower a group of people, even with something small like mobility, we're giving them a new level of freedom and a new level of empowerment, right? It goes back to control. They now have more control over their own lives. And so it really does help catalyze these big shifts in our culture. And at that time, it was important and necessary, especially for women, to have that sense of empowerment and that sense of freedom. And now we get to look at all of these different pivots and shifts. And for me, focusing on freedom is about empowering people to take control of themselves, because we've been groomed, and our culture, our society, our generational stories and patterns have taught us to focus on too many things that are out of our control. Or the flip side to that, a bit of that victim energy where we just simply react to what's happening to us.
Stacy, so much of your daily tasks are dedicated to giving. You're always taking water from your proverbial bucket and giving it to others. Your leadership events, the books you write, the talks you do, the coaching you undertake. How do you refill your bucket?
That is such a fantastic question, because really that is the foundation of everything that we have the capacity to do in the world day to day, is making sure we are functioning from a full cup rather than how I used to function. And a lot of us function from the empty cup, and we give for the purpose of getting something in return to help refill the cup, which is actually a disempowered way to function. It's actually being needy. Like, I'm going to do this for you because I need the thank you to help fill my cup just a little bit. A lot of people functioning from that empty cup don't realize that they have all these strings attached to what they're doing, rather than being in the place of prioritizing myself and focusing on what is within my control, which is me. So I do my daily routines. I have a lot of investment of my time, energy, attention, and money every day that goes to me to ensure that I'm functioning from a full cup. I have this really beautiful morning routine with gratitudes and exercise and meditation and, not the check the box routines of like coffee and, things like get the kids ready and drive here and do that. Nothing external focused. It's just, what are the things that I need to do to fill my cup in the morning? And I do the same thing in the evening. I have this beautiful nighttime routine to kind of bookend the day with time focused on me, my reading, celebrating my wins and successes from the day. And then I've learned over time how to function in my business and on my business in a way that also helps fill my cup. So I'm not draining the battery. It's this constant, it's like the Toyota Prius engine, right? Like when you pump the brakes, it just refills the batteries, right? Like the good hybrid. So, I've got the certain things that I got to do to refuel. And then I've learned how to hack the system to do the things that could drain me, but actually end up doing the recycle and recharge the batteries.
So now that your cup is full, what's next in store for Stacy Raske?
Oh my goodness. Thank you for asking. I'm so excited for my upcoming influential impact events in Tampa, February 18th and 19th. And this is for all leaders. This is business leaders and entrepreneurs, executive leaders, military leaders, thought leaders. And we have a full gamut of speakers and experts coming together to create something experiential in really elevating the attendees' leadership, mindset, influence, and of course, helping them create the impact they're called to make in 2022.
Well, Stace, thank you so much for being here. We don't want to take up too much more of your time. We appreciate it. And I think the audience is going to get a lot out of everything that you just spoke about. It's a little deep for some, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's definitely worth it. I went to the workshop. You all should get out there too. So Stace, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get tickets to the workshop and find your books, or just get in touch with you online if they have some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, the impact event is the top priority. If you want to really step into your genius and your influence in 2022, it's vipstacy.com/impact. And then the book is on Amazon. It's Be a Boss and Fire That Bitch. So you could go to firethatbitchbook.com. That'll send you right to the link or right to the landing page to get the book. And then stacyraske.com is kind of the central hub for all things. But I find the website does not keep up with all the magic. So still closing that gap, but that's okay, right? We got to prioritize our time and energy investments. So
I think Matt got stage fright.
No,
So Stacy,
I couldn't unmute myself is really what happened.
he couldn't unmute himself.
I started popping up and I couldn't do it. It's like the audience couldn't see me. My hands were going all over the place and saying somebody off,
Operator error.
But Stace, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, go hit up Stacy, find her on the socials, go to her website. And if I were you, I'd definitely get tickets to the workshop. But Stacy, I do have one question before I let you run. What does success look like to Stacy Raske?
It's funny. Defining success on my own terms has been a huge part of this transformation journey. And I would say success is something that it feels. I focus on what it feels like, because success really is enjoying the journey being present to savor the experiences of joy and fulfillment and impact, and getting the feedback from others on how simply being myself, being authentic and vulnerable and shining my light in the way that I am called to affects others. When they're like, man, that changed my life, or thank you for that lesson, or whatever it is, getting that feedback loop, like that's the magic that, again, continues to keep that cup full.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. And that's a wrap of another episode of the Liquid Launch Project. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Launch Project.